People who were abandoned as kids. What happened? I was 6 years old when my parents abandoned me. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was going to spend the weekend at my Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike's house. They told me to pack my favorite pajamas, my stuffed bunny, and a few toys because we'd be back home in a couple of days. I was excited. Aunt Linda made the best chocolate chip cookies. Uncle Mike let me help him fix things in the garage, and they had the friendliest golden retriever I'd ever met. It sounded like the perfect weekend. I had no idea it would be the last time I ever lived with my parents. My parents already had one child before me. My older brother, Ethan, was 8. Growing up, everyone in the family acted like Ethan was made of glass. He had a medical condition, not life-threatening, not terminal, nothing that required 24-hour care. He had regular appointments, took medication, and sometimes had to take it easy after getting sick. That was it. He still went to school. He played video games. He played baseball. He had friends. Looking back as an adult, I realized he wasn't nearly as fragile as my parents made everyone believe. But they loved telling people how exhausting it was, how hard life was, how all their time had to go to Ethan. Eventually, they decided one child was enough. Instead of asking relatives for temporary help, instead of hiring a babysitter, instead of getting counseling, they got rid of me. When we pulled into Aunt Linda's driveway, she smiled and waved, until she saw my dad unloading 4 suitcases. Her smile disappeared. Why are there bags? Dad simply said, "We need to talk." They went inside while I ran off to play with their dog. I never heard the conversation. Years later, Aunt Linda told me what happened. My parents sat at her kitchen table and calmly explained that raising 2 children was too much. They said Ethan needed all of their attention, that they couldn't keep dividing themselves between 2 kids, that I was easy and would adjust anywhere. Then they asked Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike to raise me, not temporarily, forever. Aunt Linda thought they were joking. Then she realized they weren't. She called them monsters. She told them they couldn't just throw away one child because she was more convenient. My father shrugged. "We're doing what's best." "For who?" she asked. He didn't answer. I still remember running inside, covered in dirt from playing outside. I asked, "Can we go home now?" My mom smiled. "This is where you're staying." I laughed. "No, silly. Home." She kissed my forehead. "You'll live with Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike now." I frowned. "For how long?" She didn't answer. My dad picked up the car keys. I thought they were going to get something from the car. Instead, they walked outside. I remember waving from the front door. "Bye. See you Sunday." They waved back. Then they drove away. That's it. No hacks. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. People always expect me to say I spent years crying for them. I didn't. I was 6. Children adapt faster than adults realize, especially when they're surrounded by love. The first night, I asked Aunt Linda when Mom and Dad were coming back. She simply hugged me and said, "You're safe here." The second day, Uncle Mike taught me how to fish in the little pond behind their house. That night we made esmores in the backyard. The next morning, Aunt Linda let me help make pancakes. By the end of the first week, I was laughing again. By the second week, I stopped asking when my parents were coming. Not because I understood, because I was a child. Children live in the present. And in my present, I had 2 adults who loved me without hesitation. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike had spent years trying to have children. They couldn't. When my parents left me behind, they never once made me feel unwanted. They repainted the guest room pink because I said I liked butterflies. Uncle Mike learned how to braid hair from YouTube. Aunt Linda came to every school event. Uncle Mike never missed a dance recital. Every scraped knee got a kiss. Every nightmare ended with one of them sitting beside my bed until I fell asleep. When I called out Mom, by accident one afternoon, I froze. I thought I'd get in trouble. Instead, Aunt Linda burst into tears. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You can call me Mom if you want." So I did. Uncle Mike became Dad not long after. It wasn't forced. It just happened, because that's who they were. My biological parents never called. Not once. Not on birthdays. Not at Christmas. Not on my first day of school. Nothing. When I was 9, they signed away their parental rights in less than 15 minutes. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike officially adopted me. That was the last piece of paper connecting me to people who had already disappeared from my life. 18 years passed. I grew up happy. I honestly rarely thought about the people who had given birth to me. I had parents. Why would I spend my life wondering about strangers? Then I got engaged. Mom cried while helping me try on dresses. Dad immediately started practicing his speech. We booked the venue. Sent invitations. Life was perfect, until my biological mother called. She somehow got my number. The first thing she said was, "My baby is getting married." I actually looked around to see if she'd called the wrong person. She hadn't. She started talking about planning a bridal shower, going dress shopping, doing a mother-daughter spa day. Dad wanted to walk me down the aisle because, in his words, that's a father's job. I was speechless. Not because I was emotional, because they sounded completely serious. I finally asked, "Why now?" She laughed awkwardly. "We've always loved you." "No, Iraplia. You love the idea of not raising me." She started crying. "We were overwhelmed." "You were overwhelmed for 18 years? Silence. Then she said the sentence that ended any chance of reconciliation. "You have to understand, Ethan needed us more." I smiled. "No." She looked confused. No. I understand Ethan had a medical condition. I also understand it wasn't severe enough to require abandoning another child. You didn't choose him because you had to. You chose him because it was easier. You didn't lose me because life was hard. You lost me because you decided I was disposable. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away. My mother already helped me choose my wedding dress. My father is already walking me down the aisle. She whispered, but we're your real parents. I stood up. No. My real mother stayed awake with me when I had chickenpox. My real father taught me to ride a bike. My real parents packed my lunches, helped with homework, celebrated birthdays, and loved me every single day. You two are simply the people whose DNA I inherited. On my wedding day, Aunt Linda buttoned my dress with trembling hands. She whispered, I've dreamed about this since the day you came to us. I smiled through my tears. So have I, Mom. A few minutes later, Dad, Uncle Mike, held out his arm. Ready, sweetheart? I nodded. As we reached the aisle, he quietly said, Thank you for making me your dad. I squeezed his arm. You didn't become my dad because of a piece of paper. You became my dad because you never once made me wonder if I was wanted. At the back of the church sat two people who had spent 18 years believing they could press pause on parenthood and come back whenever it suited them. They learned that day that parenthood doesn't wait. And childhood certainly doesn't.